Hello, another video from the Angry Photographer here. I've had a lot of people want me to compare and contrast. I've got 4 of my 6 DSLR bodies out. The only 2 that aren't out is another D810 and the older D700. There's obviously no reason comparing the older D700 with any of these. Oh, there is, but not really. I mean, we gotta get down to brass tacks unless you're looking for an old used body. There's no reason bringing out the D700 and comparing it. I'm going to state unequivocally, and of course everyone's going to say, well, opinions are like assholes, everybody has one, yours is equally valid, and they all stink, blah blah, what the fuck ever. Using a logical basis comparison, weighing all the variables and the fact that the D7100 has basically 97% of every professional capacity that the D810 has, and knowing the fact that I'm not blowing up 20 by 30 prints, the D7100 has higher pixel density. It's equivalent of its FX of 54.1 megapixels, and it is superior choice. Right now I can state, using both the subjective basis of comparison, having owned all the top end model Nikons for the past God knows how many years, all the way back to film cameras, including my beloved F4S, which of course is now long since dead, ages and ages ago, that currently the best camera, here's a statement, you have to understand what I'm saying, the best camera, the best DSLR Nikon currently makes is their D7100. Well, why do you say this? You told me in other videos that your favorite camera is the D810. So why are you now being self-contradictory? And the fact is, I'm not. I have to qualify that statement empirically and make some sort of judgment call, not only based upon my use of it, and I recently sold my Nikon D4. I knew its value was rapidly declining, and I knew the D5 is about to come out. Once the D5 comes out, sometime in the mid or later part of this year, both the D4 and the D4S are going to go like that. And they are both extremely antiquated. They have a high buffer rate. They're great sports cameras. Obviously, neither one of these is ideal for use of the 70-200 2.8 with high buffer rate, shooting on the sidelines of a major sporting event. But how many of you are doing that? Okay? Yeah, you see all these people with their Canons and their D4Ss, shooting, bazillion frames per second on the sidelines of the Super Bowl. Are you really that shooter? I mean, are you that very small handful of people? Are you really shooting? Do you really think well, that's the best. That's what I gotta have. That's what I aspire to. Stop being a gear whore. I'm trying to save you money. So what's the basis of this video that it's of any use at all versus any other fucking video on YouTube? Point being, I'm going to make a logical argument that currently the best DSLR Nikon makes at this point in time is their D7100. So what's your basis of stating that? Well, I've owned the rest for many, many years except for their lower end DSLRs. So why would I choose, say for example, the D7100 over, say for example, the D5200 or the 5300 or the recently released D5500? Well, let's compare the D7100 to the new D5500, which is $900. I just got done making you a video showing you this factory refurb, which is in 100% mint condition for $700. Has 1,100 shutter clicks on it, which of course is just 1/10 of 1% of what the shutter is rated for. I got it for $600. $700. $699. So that's $700 versus $900. Far superior camera than the D5500, unquestionably so in every respect, including its ability to use older lenses. Okay? Which is very important. It's very important to me. It's important to a lot of other people out there like you. Much better resale value. A year from now, even though the D5500 was just released, I guarantee you one thing, having worked in camera stores and watched things all these many years, is that the older camera, i.e. the D7100, will have much better resale value than the just released the D5500, because this is a professional, it's technically, they call it a professional amateur model, Nikon calls it, or their professional line of a prosumer DSLR. And all of that is really meaningless bullshit, okay? It really is. It's just meaningless. Well, the body's, no, it's not. It's a magnesium chassis, alright? It's all plastic. It's all computer parts inside. It's all processors. They're all sensors from Sony or Toshiba, okay? The lenses are something else altogether. They both have LCD screens. Both magnesium chassis. Some more magnesium than other, depending on whether they have Wi-Fi or not. Which Wi-Fi and flippy screens no professional wants. The Nikon D7100 is about to be replaced with the D7200, and the only advantage of the D7200 is no advantage at all. It's going to be more plasticky because due to Wi-Fi signal degradation, the D7200 has to remove part of the magnesium chassis to eliminate the Wi-Fi signal degradation, which is inherent to reflection or backscatter from the magnesium chassis. What they do is they replace part of the magnesium chassis, like they did on the D750, with plastic, so you can have proper signal propagation from the Wi-Fi to your iPad or your iPhone, whatnot. And you don't need a fucking flippy screen. There's never been a pro in history that wanted a flippy screen. They're more fragile. They're pretty useless. And I had someone recently arguing with me, well, you know, some videographers, they need that. If you're shooting at a low angle, you whip out your flippy screen, you can see what you're shooting, you know, low down. That is true. And how many of you are going to be doing that? Well, what, 0.1%? So that justifies sticking that fragile flippy screen on there? You know, if that's what you really want, you need a flippy screen, fine. Go buy the D750 for $22.50. So we've already established that this is $200 less than the just introduced D5500. So there's no way we'd buy that. Let's look at the next model, which would be, I can't even compare it to the D4, which I recently sold. I can compare it to the D4S. Both of those are far slower. They're faster in their buffer, but they're slower and inferior as far as their autofocus system. They have a better buffer for continuous high shooting. They are very, very slightly more rugged, but you drop kick any of these bastards, you're screwed. That's what your insurance is for. So I'm not going to compare it to the D4 or the D4S. Let's compare this, the D7100, to the Nikon D750, which has a flippy screen. It still has an inherent design flaw, which they've actually mitigated but not yet fixed. Their autofocus sensor set too high was causing reflection issues. Autofocus sensor bay in the bottom of the light box. They've lowered that. People have actually gotten back their repaired Nikon D750 still have the issue. Now the percentage of people that are actually experiencing an issue are low, but it is still a design flaw. But forgetting that there's even a design flaw in the D750 until they totally retool, forgetting that even existed, for $2,300, which is what the Nikon D750 costs, you're getting a plasticky body, which you may like that, but I think it sucks ass. I love a heavy camera. It steadies your pictures better, and I do not like plastic Tinker Toy Canon shit. It feels like Legos assembled it. What else is wrong with it? Wi-Fi. Don't need Wi-Fi, don't want Wi-Fi. It's got a fragile flippy screen. Is it any better than the Nikon D7100? Well, it's an FX camera. Of course it is. We all know FX is better than DX. Yeah, well, why don't you tell me why bird shooters, who have unlimited funds to buy $8,000 500mm lenses, are all shooting DX and not FX? Why don't you tell me that? Pixel density. Pixel density. So, it actually sits in the middle between heaven and hell as a useless camera. What do I mean by that? It sits almost in the middle, not really at the middle, it sits close to the D810. For $800 more, you can buy a superior camera, unquestionably the D810 or the D750. Do not like the D750. Now, if the D750 cost as much as a used D610, that would be different. Even though it's a plasticky piece of shit, which I absolutely can't stand, I can get over that. I don't mind plastic, okay? I got Glock handguns. I'm no aggravationist against plastic or polymer. But for $800 more, you've got a far, far superior camera in the D810, and depending on, say if it's a new one, a new D7100, for $1,300 less, you get a more rugged, better camera in the D7100 than you do in the D750. And you're saying, oh, you're balking, bullshit. You know, I've compared the specs between the two. You know, the D750 has this little tiny bullshit feature nobody uses, and the D7100 And the D750 has this tiny little bullshit feature nobody uses except for a very small handful of people versus the D7. That would be true. And yet it is also true that you don't need that. You have to talk about rationalization versus justification, differentiating. I want to rationalize something because I want it, because it's superior, or at least I was told or convinced or brainwashed by my camera store clerk that it was superior. So I'm going to spend $1,300. Now we're talking about a refurb like this, a factory refurb. The difference isn't $1,300 difference. The difference is $1,600 higher than this factory refurb D7100. Over here we have D7100, D7100, D7100. Here we have the Nikon D810. Right now, as it sits right here with this lens, 24-70-2.8, right now we're looking at right here, this is $6,000. With this lens, it's a used lens. Right now, this lens with 1,100 shutter clicks on it that I just got today, and another D7100 with the used at $24.85. This is, with lens, right at $950. You know, glass remains, okay? The bodies get old and die out. You know, in the next 2 years, there will probably be a 100 megapixel sensor, which of course will be totally useless unless you plan on printing out posters on the next generation of printers, which prints out posters. But for right now, you cannot justify to me that 99.8 or more % of you need a D750. You might want it. Well, that's the whole myth of upgrade. I gotta have an FX because I got a DX camera, and a DX is what Nikon says are amateurs. It's bullshit. I will fool you every fucking time. If you want me to print out, you want me to take pictures of the same lens, sitting on the taking a raw file, max raw file with a D810, and take that same lens and stick it on a D7100 and crop them both the same. I will fool you if you think the D810 is that much more superior. Well, you said in the past video that the D810 is your favorite camera. It's heavier, it's a little bit more intuitive. It's not that I'm perfectly well using either the D810 or the D7100 with my eyes closed. It's not that I'm more familiar with one than the other. The Nikon D810 is set up more for, it's kind of not true to say more of a professional setup. It is more intuitive. It has a slightly smoother flow. I am as comfortable with either one. I'm only very slightly more happy with the D810 by a margin of 5-8% over the D7100. Mostly the fact that I could use FX lenses. And people say, well, you know, I don't want a DX camera because, you know, DX lenses are limited and there's just so many more FX. Who cares? If you plan on upgrading, you know, start collecting glass right now. You can use any of your FX lenses on your DX cameras. Well, not the cheaper DX cameras, but on the D7000, which is the predecessor to this, the D7100. You know, you want to start buying FX lenses, fine. You just know that you're using overkill. Overkill FX lenses on these DX bodies is perfectly fine. If you think you're going to be upgrading in the future to an FX camera, fine. But you cannot tell me right now that there is even 1/3 of 1% of anybody that's seeing this video that needs a D750 or needs this $3,000 body Nikon D810. It doesn't even include the $500 battery or vertical grip on it. Doesn't even include that. Now let's not talk about the D600 or the D610, as I call it, the oil flinger. It's definitely an inferior camera to anything here. It's inferior to the D750, which I despise. The Nikon D600, D610, which just came out as a replacement to the design flaw of the D600, had the problem with flinging oil in the shutter, and it still has that problem. However, all of these sensors can be cleaned. Obviously, you don't know how to clean your sensor. You need to learn how to clean your sensor. But I'm unequivocally stating now, from the premise of not my opinion, but yes, this is my opinion. This is my subjective premise. But at least it's an educated and informed, logical, deductive conclusion that currently, for the money, you forget about the money. The best Nikon DSLR currently made is the D7100. It's unquestionably superior, sensor-wise, autofocus speed-wise, to the D600 or the D610. D600, of course, has got a design flaw. You know, you can give me a brand new D610 or a refurbed D7100, and I guarantee you I will rather have the refurbed D7100. Now let's talk about the D750, which we just got done talking about. Sits right between these two, a lot closer to D800. When I spend $800 more, you are far, far better off if you plan on spending $2,200 fucking to $2,300 fucking dollars on a D750. Buy a D800E for $1,200. You know, if you want to spend $1,000 and you got to have an FX camera, but you want to buy, well, you know, the only FX cameras worth having is the D750 and the D810, so I'm going to get the D7. No, bad choice. Buy the D800E. If you feel like, fuck you, I don't care what you say about the D7100 being so awesome, I got to have an FX camera, fine. But don't buy the D750. Buy a used minty condition, I said minty condition, didn't I? Low shutter count, D800E for $1,200. That's $1,100 cheaper than you would pay for that plasticky D750. Superior camera. Okay, it is. The D800E is superior to the D750. Unless you really think you need a flippy screen, are you planning on making movies? If so, then why aren't you buying a 3-chip Canon camcorder? Why aren't you buying a prosumer or a professional camcorder? Why do you need a flippy screen? Are you planning on using your digital camera mostly as a camcorder? Then I probably recommend that you buy a fucking camcorder. I gotta have the flippy screen because if I'm shooting a movie or like a skateboarder, I gotta flip out my screen, I can shoot low level, I can see what's going on. Ah! Okay, so you just bought a really expensive digital camera and you're gonna be using it primarily, your considerations are primarily based upon shooting it or using it as a camcorder. Wake up! What are you gonna do with it? You need to differentiate out rationalize from justify. And that is why, based upon several facts, criteria, trying to be totally objective and leaving my personal opinions behind, even though I've used all the expensive shit, that the Nikon D7100 is the best camera. Now, you know exactly what would happen. I wasn't chess champion in high school and college for no reason. I know how people think. If I didn't actually have this D810 out here, someone would say, well, you just can't afford the expensive shit. You know, that's why you say, that's why you say, that's why you say the D7100 is the best camera, because you're just a broke-ass bitch that can't afford the expensive shit. Fuck you. I can. I go out there right now and buy whatever the fuck I want. So that should make you go, this asshole owns the expensive shit, and yet he's got this video where he's telling everybody that the best camera to buy, the best current production Nikon camera, is this cheap DX body D7100. $1,000 new or $700 like new refurb. I don't understand him. I was always told the expensive shit's better. You know, you get what you pay for, blah, 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 blah. 98% of the features, and 100% of the features 99% of you will use, exist on the D7100. What is lacking on the D7100 is 3% of the features that nearly 100% of the people, 100% of you people will not use. Do you understand what I just said to you? Even though the D5500 just came out, this camera, refurb, $200 cheaper. Even though this has been out a lot longer than D5500, which just came out, a year from now this will still be worth more. Because that's right. It's the prosumer top-level DX DSLR from Nikon. And if you think that blowing $2,000 more on this D810 versus a D7100 is going to get you laid or, you know, make you look like more of a professional, or all of a sudden, you know, your SD cards are going to start shitting rainbows and unicorns. Oh my God, it's an FX picture. I can blow it up to 10,000% and still see the pubic hair on that chick on the beach on the other shore. Wrong! Doesn't work that way. If you don't believe me, just do a Google search. Type in D7100 versus D810 RAW file. Zoom them up to 100%, and you tell me if you think you're getting that much more for $2,000. I will fool your fucking ass every time with a RAW file cropped using the same lens, switch back and forth between D810 and D7100. Not every time, but most of the time. Okay. This whole notion of the path to upgrade, oh, there's this mystical rainbow where there's free sex and blowjobs and, you know, gold flows in the rivers, and it's the land called FX. And I live on the other side of the train tracks where everything is shitty and crappy and low resolution, and this side of the train tracks is called DX. And by God, if I save every fucking penny from working at McDonald's for the next 4 years, I am gonna buy that fucking ticket to the other side of the train tracks we call FX, because that is where the real shit is. I know you're probably thinking I'm drunk. I actually was drinking some orange juice back there. I know exactly what one of you SOBs is thinking. He's drinking behind the camera. Well, yeah, I was. I was drinking orange juice. And if I didn't show you all the expensive shit, as I told you before, these little peckerheads, these douchebags, these syphilitic inbred assholes, these keyboard jockey moron gear whores. Well, Zeiss is the best, and I got a Zeiss lens on my D810, and I take better pictures anyway. I can give a professional photographer a shitty old Kodak camera with scratches on the front element, and he will produce better pictures than you can with this $6,000 rig right here. Okay? Professional photographer is someone who is master of light, manipulating light, and a master of composition. And I'm trying to save you money. Now, while I have offered an opinion in this rather long video, which I kind of repeated myself here and there, but, you know, screw it, forgive me, okay, fine. But I am stating unequivocally that having owned the D4, having used the D4S extensively, and having owned every professional DSLR for the past many years, all the way back to film, that currently, as it sits, the best current DSLR Nikon makes, the best bang for your buck, without doubt, without question, is the D7100. A minty refurb one of these is infinitely cheaper than a brand new D5500. It's $1,200 cheaper than the D750, and the D750 is only $800 less from a superior camera here, the D810. D600 and the D610 aren't even running. All of these cameras, including the D750, blow the shit out of the water of the D600 and the D610. There's no pro that will actually argue that position. It'll, of course, blow the shit out of my D700 FX camera. I don't have it out here for a reason. I've owned the expensive shit. I got the expensive shit. I'm making a video here, not just to save you money. It's like, well, you're making a video for broke-ass bitches. You just can't afford the expensive shit because we all know that the other side of the train tracks we call FX is where the real shit is. Because we're all printing out 20 by 30s all day long. You know? And you know, that's where all the pro gear is. And if you own a DX camera, you're a douchebag. You're just an amateur. Fuck you. It's a lie. It's a lie. I'm here to dispel the propaganda. If you don't believe me, Google raw files from the D810 versus the D7100, okay? Don't take my word for it. And I didn't make a long video going down a list of comparison. Well, the D810 has this, and if you plan on getting a D750, don't. Save yourself $1,300 and get a minty used D800E or D800, okay? And use that remaining $1,200 to buy some fucking glass. Cameras are cameras are cameras. The glass lasts. That should be my fucking motto. Two mottos. The glass lasts and autofocus is for pussies. Not that I don't love autofocus, but Yeah, I'm sorry this video was too long, but I kind of had to go down a list and not be, totally opinion. Well, there's this asshole. He says that DX camera, that cheap DX camera is better than the D750 and the D800, D810, but he's also contradictory. He told in other videos that his favorite camera was the D810. I did say that, and I still mean it. What I'm stating is that the current best production camera by Nikon, not in build quality, it's made better than everything else. The best camera, which involves some of the variables I've been laying out for you these past 25 minutes, is the D7100. Good news for you too is if you want one, you should wait a couple months because the D7200 is about to be announced, and that will invariably, I don't know if it'll take a month or two, but that will invariably drop the price of the superior D7100. The D7200 is going to have live aperture focus for video, which nobody gives a fuck about except for videographers. We're talking about digital cameras here, not video. So that's a bullshit video feature. It's going to have a slightly better buffer rate. Nothing that any of you are ever going to notice. It's going to have a fragile fucking flippy screen, which you don't fucking need. Or at least 99.9% of you don't need. Not only don't need, but you're trying to justify, and you're confusing justify with needs. Well, I'm rationalizing I need it. No. You don't need it. You're rationalizing you need it. Justification for it is zip, zilt, zero. And it's going to have Wi-Fi. And the reason they're going to make that Wi-Fi is they're going to remove part of this magnesium chassis on the D7200. They're going to change it a little bit to improve signal degradation, which is inherent to magnesium chassis bodies. So they're going to yank out part of the metal that makes it such a beefy construction. Of course, if you're not dropping your camera, who gives a shit, right? Well, heavy cameras are good for stability, and they're good for durability. But that is a personal preference, but it's a personal preference of most pros too. So D7200 is not going to have anything special. It's going to have one thing special. The D7200 is going to do one thing really special that's going to make the D7200 awesome. What's that? It's going to drop the price of the D7100. Okay, if you like this video, you can always send me a buck or two PayPal. You don't have to do anything. You can tell me to go fuck myself or tell me where I'm wrong. Whatever you like. Rock out with your cock out, whatever floats your boat, whatever paddles your canoe, okay? I laid out a logical premise here for you. You either like it, you don't like it. But at least I gave you a logical string of premises as to why the D7100 is the best current production Nikon. The whole myth of the upgrade and thinking that the rainbow and the gold and the and the free sex on the other side of the tracks called FX, everything's just going to change. You're just going to blow shit up to 600%, and you're going to be able to see pubic hair of a naked woman on the other side of the beach when you took a picture with your FX camera with 33.6 megapixels. Bullshit! Bullshit, okay? It's bullshit. So, let me know of any more videos you want to make, and I will make them if they're reasonable. Keyword being reasonable. Thanks for watching. Get it? Got it? Good.